just for the purpose of getting everything out of the way, just mute you all up. Of course, if you do want to jump in and say something, add something, then please unmute yourself, but I'll just mute you all up so we can get started. And I'll just add more people in. Joe Barnes is coming in. So whilst people are joining us, we've all seen the sort of the slide about the productivity program. There's no new registrations for today because obviously this is part 2 of strategic planning, and this is a 2-part webinar to help you make the most of 2021. If there are people that have been on today's webinar that weren't on part 1, the recording should be available to you. I have given it to the university, so they should be able to give you access to it. And I would encourage you to go and take a look at it. It's not essential, but it's certainly useful if you've not watched part 1 yet or took part in part 1. As I say, lots of things available from the productivity program. I was talking to a client yesterday who is in Spark House. They've just accessed 3 things through the productivity program, and they've got financial support, which is about £6,500 just this past week. And it's allowed and enabled them to take on 3 extra people. So it's certainly worth reaching out to the productivity program and making sure you're getting that support and that help that you need, not just the webinars that we have, of course. As always, any questions, please put them in the chat box as we go along. If there's anything you want to talk about which is a little bit off topic, I'm happy to cover any other hot topics as well. As long as it's not a fitness question and answer from Thomas there, who's on his bike. That would be probably pushing me a bit too far. But anything you want to ask at all, please use the chat box. Today I'm using 2 screens, so I've got it on my iPad here at the side, so you'll see me looking over to the side. 1, to see who's on the call, and 2, to make sure that I'm cover off any questions in the chat box. Important to take plenty of notes. Today is going to be slightly different, and it's going to be very much about changing the way that you think. And I'm going to share the reason behind that in a moment, but it's important to get those flashing moments of the obvious and just jot them down. Make sure you've got something to drink. I've got my honey and lemon here to keep my voice going underneath my table here. So make sure you've got plenty of notes that you can take and plenty of drink to keep you hydrated as well. Now, what we're covering today is really about making your plans stick. Now, I've been using a tool called the One-Page Strategic Plan for about 20 years now, and I used it in my construction business, my garden centre, my e-learning business, all the business I've ever had. I've always used a strategic planning document. But the success of achieving everything on those plans, and when I do webinars like this, I very often say to people, I've achieved 95% of the goals that I set on my plans for long-term goals. It's actually 100%, but I always feel a bit cheesy when I say 90, 100%, so I always change it to 95%. But what I'm going to talk about today are ways in which not only can you achieve your plan, but also exceed it. And I want to give credit to three sources. The first one is a great friend of mine, a great coach who is in Australia called Rowan Dredge. He does some amazing podcasts, very, very up on leadership, particularly leadership styles in business. And he helped me put a program together similar to what we're going to talk through today some years ago. Taki Moore, who is one of my coaches, who also gave me some great ways of helping my plan stick. And I've got it here behind me because this bookcase isn't just a Zoom background. It is a real bookcase with real books on it. This, for me, was a game changer. It's The Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly. And I've used it with many, many clients and some really, I suppose, industries that you wouldn't think would be into this kind of thing. But it's about making your plans not just achieve your dreams, but making sure that your plans for your business and for yourself help everybody in your business achieve their dreams as well. So if we can facilitate the process of helping other people achieve their dreams, then that's really important. And I used to share my plans with everybody in the business. And I've had people in my business who have helped their colleagues, their work friends, get rid of gambling debts, buy their first ever house. You know, the whole team, by working together to achieve the business plan, have actually helped each other achieve their dreams and their plans as well. So they're the three sources that have inspired me to talk about what we're going to cover today. So we're going to look at 3 keys to exceeding the plan. We're going to talk about each of those 3 keys. We're going to look at some foundations for success, some principles to follow, and of course, principles are rules without the consequences, I suppose, really, that fit with our values, etc. We're going to then look at how we can make our plans stick. So that's what we're going to cover today. I want to remind you all, and again, some of you might not have been on the first one, but the most important thing is to take that worksheet, that forward focus reflection worksheet, and make sure that you've gone through the worksheets from the past webinar, particularly the forward focus reflection. We've got to start with where we are now. You know, I'm heading off to Hull later on this afternoon to pick my car up after having some repairs. And the first thing the sat-nav will have to do to determine the journey, you know, I'll input the destination, but it's got to know where I am to map that journey. So we've got to make sure we do that. And I would encourage you to use the notes. You know, if you took any notes from last time, use them today. Have them to hand. If you haven't got to hand, quickly go and grab them. And make sure that you've got them to hand and you can highlight them, you can star things, and you can develop and add to the notes that you've already got here. Just making sure I've got everybody on before we start going into the content. I think everybody had a few apologies. So yeah, okay, looks like we're good to go. So 3 keys to exceed the plan. And this isn't about creating a different plan, okay? This is about making the most of the plan that we talked through in part 1, okay? If you remember, we looked at those 90-day actions and activities and looking at the things that we want to achieve in 12 months, 6 months. So this is about 3 keys to exceed that plan. And the first key is destination. We've got to have an absolute laser focus, clarity on our destination. Okay, so that's one of the keys that we're going to talk about. The other key that we're going to talk about is becoming more. If you think that you can set a bigger plan and be the same person that you were last year that met, you know, perhaps a smaller plan, if you want to exceed your plan, if you want to achieve more, if you want to, I suppose, reach for higher targets, higher goals, then you've got to become more. Okay. And it's not just you personally, it might be your team, it might be people in your business. So we're going to talk about I love that's one of my favorite images, you know, filling the shoes. You know, if we've got to grow into those shoes, we've got to become more. And then we're going to look at ways in which we can work the plan. Now, if any of you think that a strategic plan is something that you do once a year, you do it, you then put it in a filing cabinet and you don't get it out for 12 months, forget that. You know, you've got to work the plan. The plan should be looked at and reviewed at least every 90 days. But for me, you know, I want to be looking at my plans weekly. You know, I used to, when I had the construction company, I had my huge AO plan on the wall so that every single person, every single plasterer, bricklayer, apprentice, office staff member would walk by that plan every single day and see it. Okay, so we need to work the plan. So they're the 3 keys that we're going to look at. The first key is destination. Okay, and I'm going to give you some foundations that when you're looking at your destination, that you need to really make sure that you're embracing and you're working on when you're doing your plans. And these are really important to get these in place. The first one, I know this seems obvious, but it's to look forward. Okay, so what I want you to think about, and it's always a bit of a workshop type format. I want you to think about distractions, because to look forward, what you've got to do is get rid of, to a point, the rear view mirrors that get distracting. Okay, now of course at some point we are going to, when we review our plan and we work our plan, we're going to take a look back and make sure that, you know, did we do what we said we were going to do, and that kind of thing. But when we're looking at our destination, we don't want to be distracted by certain things. So I want you to think about things that might distract you. Now, they might be some things that you need to work on. You know, it might be cash flow is a distraction. It might be, as we were talking with Frank earlier on, it's, you know, the distraction is the procrastination of clients in making decisions. But we want to make sure that we're lifting our head up and we're looking forward. Another thing I'll share with you is that a lot of businesses that I meet and I speak with, and I've been guilty of this as well, have what I call the clown effect. Okay, so as business owners, we wear big clown shoes. Okay, but what we do is we spend all of our time looking down at the end of those big shoes, and we trip up. What we need to do is we need to take our eyes off of what's just in front of us, take our eyes off those clown shoes and lift it up and look further ahead. That's what I mean by that. So you've got to make sure that you're looking forward and you're looking in the distance, which is why last time we had that exercise of saying, if I was to meet you in 12 months' time, what would you tell me? Okay, so we need to look forward. Another foundation, and I'm sorry that some of the graphics here took the lady's eye out for some reason. I'm not quite sure why it did that. I think I was trying to get rid of some of the background. But what I want you to think of is that your plans have two creations. As in architecture, you know, when an architect designs a fantastic building, that's the plan, okay? That's the drawing, but it started with a concept in their mind. It started with some pictures in their mind. And I want you to make sure that you're pulling all of that information from that first creation in your mind onto the plan. Are there any thoughts that you've missed? Are there anything that you had a vision of when you were thinking about the business and the plan that perhaps you've not got out of your head and put it onto paper? So we want to make sure that we don't keep anything in our head, that we need to take that blueprint of what's in our mind and put it onto paper with our plan. Okay. And everything starts with a thought. You know, our words come from our thoughts, our actions come from our words. So we've got to make sure we get it out there. The other thing I would encourage you to do is brainstorm this with your team. Get input into your plan from other people, because other people will also have thoughts. They'll also have ideas. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that the plan that they've got in their heads, that's why I get from a dream manager, the plan of what they want, where they want the business to go, what they want to achieve from the business is actually aligned with yours. Okay, so get input. Now, you don't always have to agree with it. You don't always have to accept it, but be honest and tell them that. Yeah, try and get as much congruence between the creation in people's minds in your team to your plan as you possibly can. So bring the creations together. Okay. The other thing, and this is where, again, I want you to look at your notes. If you wrote anything down in your plan, the best way you will achieve it is by making it emotional. You know, you've got to feel it. You've got to be able to sense it, get excited about it. If your plans don't excite you, if they don't excite your team when you share it with people, then the plans are going to fall flat. You're not going to exceed your plans. You're not going to reach your plans. You have got to become passionate. You've got to light a fire underneath yourself when you're thinking about the plan and talk about the plan. So make sure that you use emotional words. Okay. Make sure you put feeling words in there. Okay. How does it make you feel? Use words. Quite often in plans, we don't like to use things like happiness and things like that. But, we should put there that we're enjoying it. We've got a happy workforce. We've got an excited. We've got a driven workforce, or we've got a driven set of actions. Use emotional words, and emotion has that word motion in it. They've got to feel that they're moving you forward. Okay, so make sure when you look at your plans, make sure it's got emotional words. Now, this isn't all fluffy stuff of mindset and stuff like that. You've got to actually put the words in there. People will read it and people want to be excited about it. So make sure it's got emotional words in there. The other foundation in this first key of setting the destination is I see too many people get paralyzed by destination. They don't have the clarity and they think they've got to be perfect with the focus and with the clarity and with the detail. Okay. Yes, we want to get that clarity. Yes, we want to get that perfect picture, but we don't want it to be at the cost of not starting to do anything. I'm always surprised when I say to people about their plans and they say, well, I started it in January and I'm hoping I'm going to finish it. And I say, really? It's August? Don't you think you really should have worked on it before now? Had that with somebody a couple of years ago, and it had just sat there and they were continually tweaking it and messing with it, but they hadn't rolled it out. I'm with a client on Friday and we've got a KPI performance reporting meeting, and I'm going to be going into the MD's office when I'm there because he's got some things that he should have done in December that he still hasn't done. And I keep saying to him, just take one step. If you take some motion towards it, you'll achieve it. So make sure that you don't allow the destination to paralyze you. Start doing something to move towards it. Okay. So really important foundations when we're thinking about destination. Lift our heads up, look ahead. Don't get distracted by things that are behind us or at the side of us. Don't look at the end of our clown feet. Think about those two destinations. Make sure that you've got everything out of your head and everything out of everybody's head down in the plan. Add emotion to it, emotion. And Thomas is definitely showing his motion there as he's doing his cycling challenge. I've never seen so much motion on a webinar before in my life. And we've got to feel it and we've got to start now. Okay, so think about your notes and think about that destination and try and think of one thing. Hazel, Joe, I'm just looking at the list that we've got here. If there's something that you need to do to work on your destination, something you need to do to start moving towards that destination, something you need to do to add detail about the destination on your plans, please jot it down now before we move on to the next key. It's really, really important, because if you don't get the foundations, do you need to add more emotion to it? Do you need to consult with perhaps your senior managers? If you're a sole trader, some of us on here might not have anybody to bounce it around. Have you got a peer? Have you got a friend? Is there somebody that you can trust, that you can bounce your ideas around and just make sure that they're helping you get, an advisor, of course, a coach, a consultant, somebody who's going to get those thoughts out of you? Have you emptied all of that creation out of your head into the plan? Okay, so that's key number one, and they're the foundations that we need to make sure we've got if we're going to exceed our plan. The next key here is to become more. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is talk about the principles of becoming more, because the principles are really about activity. Okay, it's about living by our values. It's about doing things that fit with our company values. So when you're looking at your plans, make sure your plans fit with the values of your business. And we're going to talk about some principles, and we're going to talk about some focuses as well as we go through this. The first thing, and I'm not going to dwell on this because we had a webinar last week from Mark Rhodes, and he talked about leadership. But you have got to be a good leader in the business, and you've got to be a good leader of yourself. You've got to show discipline. You've got to show that when you say you're going to do something, that you do it. You've got to lead by example. And even if you're on your own in business, you can be the leader of your own thoughts. You can make sure that if you think about something, you follow it through. So the best leadership is self-leadership. Look at yourself first. Okay, if you're going to become more, make sure that when you look at the plans, are you actually walking the walk? Are you leading by example? Because if you're not, and you're not that shining light there on the image, then you're not really going to do it. And Mark Rhodes gave us some great resources last time. I think he had a YouTube channel for those of you that were on Mark's webinar, and I'm sure Lottie will give you any details. Unfortunately, the recording isn't available for that. I did record it, but apparently that wasn't part of his deal with the university. So we haven't got that. The other thing to become more is expand your network. Okay, and what I want you to think about here are, what are the gaps that you feel people can help you with? Are there people that can help with perhaps some training? Are there people that can bring advice? Are there peer-to-peer networks where you can actually talk to other people in the industry and realize that you're not on your own? I'm always amazed. My background was and still is in construction, and I hear this from every other industry as well, but construction industry think we're unique, we're not like anybody else, we're pretty special, and anything you say that applies to any other industry won't apply to us. Well, absolute rubbish. Every industry has some commonality, and there are always people out there that will say me too. There will be somebody out there who has done it, fixed it, and is happy to share the solution with you. Your network could be through videos, podcasts. So what can you do to bring in the skills and the abilities that you need? What can you do? And of course, the productivity program is a great resource. You can bring all kinds of academic expertise. You can bring graduates into your business, expand that network. The next thing to be careful of in becoming more is the use of your words. And I've seen this many times. I had a contracts manager called Eric, and when he first started working with me, I would ask him, "How you doing, Eric?" And he'd always use the same two words, and it used to drive me nuts. Not bad. Two negative words, not and bad. I had a decorator, Steve, who would come in on the same morning, and I'd say, "Steve, how are you doing?" "Absolutely amazing. How about you?" And Steve made a decision every morning to use his words wisely. And I asked him once, "Steve, how come Eric's always not bad, but you're absolutely amazing?" He said, "Because when I got out of bed, I decided that the day hasn't even started, so I'm going to look at the word, and look at the word as amazing." So be careful of the words that you use. Okay, be careful of the language that your team use if you've got a team around you. We don't want shoulds and coulds and maybes and mights. When you're sharing a plan, when you're talking about the plan, when you're writing the plan, we want to make sure our words are as if they've already been done. We want them to be, present tense at least. I have done this, not I will, not I could, I might, as I say. And we want positive words. So if you hear that phrase, "not bad," and I got Eric turned around in the end, and I said, "Eric, do me a favor," and it took me a while, change it to "pretty good." he didn't want to go the full way to absolutely amazing, but pretty good felt a pretty good, I'm using it now. It felt that middle ground. So, but just that change of words can make such a difference. So, as it says there, your words create your world. If you want you to achieve your plans, you've got to talk as though the plans are already in the bag. You've got to use positive language. You've got to use positive words. You've got to use good, solid words. So make sure you use your words. The other thing is think steps. I don't know if anybody here has read Bear Grylls' autobiography when he talks about climbing. He broke his back, and then he was lying in bed and he wanted to climb Everest, and they said he'd never walk again. But what you pick up from the book is that you can't just decide to climb Everest and then start at the bottom and jump straight to the top. You've got to plan. You've got to put steps in place. And you can make little steps. Don't think that your steps have to be huge, okay? But each day, each week, each month, if you want to become more, try to take a step towards that. It might just be, this week, I'm going to try and use more positive language. This week, I'm going to make sure that I talk to everybody in the business. Think about the steps that you can take. And it doesn't have to be a full leap. You don't suddenly have to become this superhero in your business, which of course we all want to be, but it's the progression, it's the steps that we want to take. And what I realized in Bear Grylls' book is that when they climb Everest, they go to base camp 1, then back down, then to base camp 1, to base camp 2, and all the way back down again. And by the time they get to the top, I forgot how many times, they've actually climbed Everest, I think 3 times in distance, because they get almost to the top and come all the way back down just to reacclimatize themselves. Because they're taking the steps, they're making sure that they can take each of the steps that are in front of them. So when you look at your plans, does anything feel too big? When you think about what you've got to become, and just think about it now, and just take a moment and jot anything down. Is there anything that you feel you really want to do? Anything that you want to achieve? Anything that you need to learn? Does it feel too big? And if it does, just write the word steps at the side of it, or just think about steps that you could do. And just write something down. Because what I see in most people is the reason they don't become more and they don't achieve what they want to achieve in themselves is because they thought too big. And again, they just sit there at the bottom looking at the summit, and they either try and do it all in one go. I did a push-up challenge last year, 25 push-ups for 25 days. And you build it up. You don't suddenly just go and say, okay, with no warm-up, I'm going to do 25 push-ups a day, and then we'll do it for 25 days. You've got to build up. And I'm sure Thomas is building up his challenge there as he's going on the bike as well. But you've got to think in steps. So I also want to give you some focuses to think about. And these things for me are, when I do workshops on this is a reason for making your plan work. Okay. And I don't know if any of you have seen this before, but it's the wheel of life. Okay. And in the wheel of life, there are 8 areas. So if you want to sketch this out, you just draw a circle and split it into 8 segments. Easier said than done for those of you like me that can't draw. But we've got 8 areas. And what we do on this, and I'm going to send a worksheet of this out to Lottie with the recording. So if you want a copy of this, either let me know or let Lottie know. But what we do is we look at each of the sectors as we are now, and we score it. So where is our health? Between 0 and 10, 10 being the absolute best that it can be, and 0 being the worst that it can be. Where are we on that scale? Now, if you'd have asked me, 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago now, nearly, when I just turned 50 and found out I've got to have a hip replaced, my health before that was pretty poor, which is why I had to have the hip replaced. After I had it replaced and I started doing the exercise, my health was increased. And it didn't increase by chance. It increased because I went for the surgery and I did the training and had the physio and everything else. But we score it between where we are. So that's health. Family. Now, each of these titles we're going to talk through in a moment will mean something different. You know, I don't have any children, but I have my wife and we have lots of animals. You know, we've got horses, dogs, sheep, and all sorts. So they're my family. Romance. Okay, whatever that means to you. Personal growth. So how are you growing? Yeah, how are you developing? Are you learning more? You do things. It doesn't have to be business personal growth. It could be you want to learn a new hobby. Yeah, it might be that you want to learn a new skill. Recreation, hobbies, interests. Physical environment could be your work environment, could be your home environment. Career is your business. For those of us perhaps on this call who are employees or managers, it can be your career within the business. And of course, money speaks for itself. Interestingly enough, I had one guy fill this in some time ago. So I'm a little bit torn between money and romance. He says, because every time my romance goes up, my money goes down. He says, and if I want to start saving money, then my romance goes down. This is a guy that had been married, I think, 3 or 4 times. So he obviously hadn't got that balance right somewhere. But the idea behind this, what I want you to do is I want you to score the wheel where you are. So write down, you can do it as a wheel, you can do it, but score between 0 and 10 where you are right now on each of those. So you might be a 5 on health. You might be a 6 on career and business. Score where you are right now. If you're not sure, don't think about it too much. Just put the first thing that comes down. Don't overthink it too much. If you can't think of any score, then just leave it blank because you need to go back to it. Now I can actually see that some of you are right. This is where this format works better than the webinar format, because I can actually see you on screen now. So I can see the heads going down and people writing things down. So thanks for doing that. Now, the reason for doing this is you are all in business, whether you own your business, whether you work in the business, we're all in here because we want a better life. We want a better life for ourselves, and we want a better life for those people that are around us, that are close to us. Okay. And when we create a plan, that plan should give us a better life. So that plan that we worked on in the last webinar, if you achieve that plan, it should help you improve in some way. Some might be minor, some might be major, but it should help you increase every score on this wheel of life. So the homework is to go through your plan, and when you've revised your plan and when you've updated it with the foundations and other things we're going to talk about, I want you then to say, okay, if I was to meet me in 12 months' time when I've achieved this plan, what would those scores be? How much would they have increased? And if your scores haven't increased, then your plan needs a bit more tweaking. Because again, that's what I learned from that book, The Dream Manager. And think about it. Does your plan help your team? Does it help them be better in their family focus? Does it help them personally grow? Does it help them have the time for their hobbies and interests? Perhaps you can bring hobbies and interests into work by doing charity events. I had quite a few people that love jumping out of planes and doing parachute jumps. So we decided that we'd, 1, improve their skills, 2, give me a challenge and do something for charity. And we all jumped out of the plane with parachutes, I hasten to add. But so I want you to score it where it is now. I'm going to trust that you're doing that now, but I want you to score it when you've updated your plan. And if you don't see an improvement, then retweak the plan. And I want you to hold these 2 documents that you're going to do against the plan. So when you review your plans, this is the reason that you're doing it. You're doing these plans. You're doing the hard work of working through the plans, taking the steps, watching your language, getting that emotion, all the things that we're talking about so far. You're doing all of that to improve your life, the circle, the wheel of life. Okay. And you're doing it also to improve that for those other people in your business as well. And I know we had a conversation, Joe, about some potential decisions that you've got to make in the business. And sometimes actually some of those difficult decisions do actually help your team improve some of these areas. It helps them do some of the things. If working your business is wrecking their family, then that's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for you or your business neither. So we want to make sure we're trying to help our team do this as well. So just going through this, family, we've got to think, a lot of us don't find enough reason to do things for ourselves, strangely enough, but we often will do it for people around us. We will do it for our children. We'll do it for our friends. We'll do it for our community. So find a reason, find something in the plan that helps you improve your family, your generation side of things. Okay. Just a gentle reminder, Valentine's Day is coming up. So, think about the romance. What are you doing? Does your plan give you the space for romance? And I know a lot of people who have lost relationships because of their businesses, and that's so sad. The business should contribute towards your relationship, not take it away. Are you adding value? Are you adding value to yourself? Are you adding value to the people around you? Are you getting to do the things in life that you want to do? That's me and my wife Angela in New York. We always wanted to go to New York. So our plan for that year for the business was to give the business enough success so that I had the money and I had the time to go and have that dream holiday in New York. Okay. And that was one of the things that I decided that it was going to do. It could be your home. Does it give, a lot of us are working from home offices at the moment. What's your physical environment, as we've said? Are you progressing? Are you doing more? Are you making more money? I'm going to whiz through these because these are all pretty standard for most of us. And as we're getting a really good example on this webinar in particular, are we looking after our health? We have got to make sure, particularly in today's world, if your energy levels are low, if you're feeling tired all the time, generally it's hydration, it's diet, it's rest. So, you need to make sure you look after your body. You have to make sure you look after yourself. So like they're doing I think I can remember a plane a long time ago. You have to put the oxygen on yourself before you put oxygen on other people. Look after your own health. So 8 areas of focus, and your plans should improve every single one of those. If you want to exceed your plans, it should touch every single one of these 8 focuses. And some of them, as Frank said here, some of them might be significant gains. Some of them might be less significant. It depends where you are. And some actually, as I joked about Keith and the romance and the money, but some might actually have to stay the same for the benefit of something else. But what I wouldn't want you to do is see a decline in any of those areas of the wheel of life to achieve anything in your plan. And I think that's what's important. So we're going to go on to the final key here, and this for me is the most important one. So I've left a good sort of 15 minutes or so on this. Is work your plan. Your plan should come out of the filing cabinet, down from the wall, every 3 months at the very least. Okay. So what I want you to do in the chat box, and Frank's already started using the chat box. What I would like you to do, I'd like you to type in the chat box, and this is just to make sure that you're all awake. I'd like you to type in the chat box how often you review your business or your strategic plans. Just type it into the chat box, and that'll give me a chance to get a sip of honey and lemon as well. Be honest. How often do you review your plans? The high level plans. You might have, sort of what are we doing this week type meetings, but how often do you look at the big plans? Just type it into the chat box. Don't be shy. We've known each other long enough now. Okay, so Hazel, each quarter with the board. Great. Yeah, at least each quarter. That's a good way. Frank, monthly. Jackie, currently, very often. At least once a month. Yeah. Wendy, love that answer. When the mood takes me. Yeah. As long as the mood takes you weekly, monthly, or quarterly at least, then I'm happy with that. Thomas there, yeah, never. So we should review the plans, okay? And we should review them on our own, if that's right that we do that. But I would certainly encourage you to review it with other people, review it with the team, and certainly more than once a year. David's there once a year unless something needs changing. I would, of course, you've got to redo your plan every year as we're doing now, but you certainly need to review it and work it and make sure you're staying on track with it on a much more regular basis. So I'm going to give you some things to help you stick. So you remember last time we set those 90-day action sheets up. So at the very least, I want every single person that's on this webinar or that is listening to the recording of it to make sure you get the plans out and you set new actions to keep the plan moving every quarter at the very least. You know, step up and do one thing and do it quarterly. Okay. Set irrespective of when my year end is, I do mine every quarter by calendar. So end of March, end of June, etc. You can, if you're going to do it monthly, pick a day in the month, pick a week in the month that you're going to do it. The more you can do the rhythm of it, the better. So what we're going to do here is talk about things that make the plan stick, make the actions stick. And the first one is 2 words for success, yes and no. And it's a bit like the old Pareto rule, 80-20. And it should actually be 80% no and 20% yes. You will be more successful the more things you say no to. The more things that distract you from your plan. Every decision that you make, okay, should be against the plan. If you get a significant business decision, whether it's the board that's doing it, whether you're doing it on your own, or whether you're doing it with a business partner, the first thing you should do is get that plan out and decide, does it help us achieve our plan? If it does, great, we'll move forward with it. If it doesn't, we're going to say no to it. So make decisions against your plan. That's why the plan for me comes out even more regular than when you review it, because you make your decisions against it. And trust me, the balance is always there. The more, when you learn to start saying no to things, success starts to happen. Okay. You've got to be careful what you say no to and what you say yes to. But certainly, I think all of us, without exception, myself included, know that we need to say no to certain things that we get lured into the false sense of security of saying yes to, or we would about upsetting somebody, or we would about the consequences of it. So 2 words for success, yes and no. The other things, I do this in my journal. So each week I have a list of things that I won't do. Okay, so I have my not to do list. So it might be, for example, on Mondays. Mondays is more of my admin day. It's my development day. I call it my day off, but it's not quite at the moment. But I don't check emails on Mondays. Yeah, I won't look at things like WhatsApp. It's, for me, Mondays is an outward day. So if I'm going to do anything, it's going to be a publishing day, something that's going out, not something that's going in. So think about what you don't want to do. Do it weekly, do it monthly. What are the things that we're not going to let ourselves get distracted by? What are we not going to do? It's an interesting process, and it's a hard one to grasp when you first do it, but it will help you stay on focus to the plan. And again, it's about making decisions against that plan. The other thing is keep moving. When you review your plan, if something seems to have stopped, if something's stalled, if it's paused, don't allow it to. Now, you're not going to do big strides all the time, but if you've got something on your plan, everything should have some kind of movement. Okay, it should have some forward motion. If it's stood still, then really it's going backwards. Okay, so keep the plan. When you're reviewing it, make sure every single part of that plan has some kind of motion to it. Think I'll get my teeth into gear. Think about the generations. I'll say it that way. Think about the other people in the business. Think about the people that are going to be succeeding other people in the business. Okay, do the plans help the business evolve and have succession, and does it help all the different time zones of the business? You know, is it helping the apprentices? Is it helping those people that have just joined the business? Is it helping those people that have been in the business a long while? They often get forgotten about because they know it all, don't they? They've been in the business a long while. They know what we're all about. They don't need to have all this stuff. But you've got to think about every generation. Okay, so if you're going to work the plan, think about all the levels. Think about the impact it has on the people coming up through the business. Think about what the plans do to those that are leaving the business. Yeah, I've had businesses where I've had to think about people that are retiring in 2 years' time. How excited are they going to be about a plan that's talking about 5 years? So you have to think about things that you're going to do for them that get them moving and not just standing still. So think about all the generations and all those time zones within the business. Be prepared. And as I say this, I don't think there's a better time when actually everybody will accept this. Something will get in the way. Disruption will come. Who knew? I did this back in 2018. Who knew when we were talking about 2019 and 2020 we were going to get a pandemic? There will always be twists in the road. There will always be things that get you off track. Some things will knock you off track. Some things will, you will stop measuring things. You know, we've talked in previous webinars about key performance indicators and how we measure that we're staying on track. But realize that you are going to get knocked off track. And that's why you've got to review the plan. Yeah, those of you who said that you don't review it every quarter or beyond, what you don't realize is very often how far you've gone off track. And sometimes you're so far off, it's such a huge effort to pull yourself back on. Where if you're working the plan, looking at the plan on a regular basis, what you will keep doing is just nudging yourself back onto track. Okay. Think about a car. When you drive a car, you know, if those of us who do drive, if you just sat there and held the wheel absolutely firm in one place as you drive on a straight road, you would actually start veering off, even though you're pointing straight and you're holding the wheel. Try it, as long as the road's quiet around you and there's no snow. If you hold the wheel absolutely firm, you will start drifting off, because as you're driving, you're consistently making little adjustments. Okay, you know, one of my passions and one of my hobbies, businesses used to be flying helicopters, and you know, there's always something. You know, there's always a little bit of wind. There's always a different ground effect. So when you fly a helicopter, you're consistently moving the stick and the pedals. Everything's going. It's exactly the same in your business with the plan. You've got to keep making those little tweaks. You've got to keep making those adjustments, because you will be going off track. So keep that focus, keep looking forward at destination, and keep yourself on track. So what I'd like you to do now is think about things that you know you need to do to work on the plan. Think about things that perhaps you've realized that you don't include all the different generations in the business. Is it about that motion? Is it about that movement? Is it about reviewing it instead of doing it quarterly? Could we do it monthly? Instead of, you know, could we do a mini review monthly? You know, Frank, you've put here, carry out SWOT analysis on a quarterly basis and try and identify bumps in the road. Absolutely. I'll give you an extra T for SWOT. Everybody that's on here, and it's particularly relevant for productivity, spell SWOT with a double T. And the last T is trends to watch. If you ever do a SWOT analysis, include an extra box, trends to watch, because I think we all need to, in this fast moving world, look at the trends that are around us. If only Blockbuster had have done that when they did their SWOT analysis in the video stores. They weren't seeing the trends that were happening around them. So write down some things that you need to do on your plan. Write down some things that are going to help you work on the plan. And if you've got any questions, any more comments, please keep putting them in the chat box, because we've only got a few slides left to go, and we've got about 7 minutes left. So to get leverage, just while you think about questions, if you want to hold your motivation for the entire year, put things in there for the whole year. Don't just plan the next board meeting. Don't just plan the next review. Plan the whole year's reviews. Share your plan with other people. Think about those negative thoughts. Think about those words. Act as if, and be ready to veer off track, but get back on. Okay? Don't just think, oh, well, I'm going to hang on for dear life and hope that it comes back. It won't. You've got to make some decisions. You've got to take some action to get back on track. I mentioned there sharing the plan. Share your plans with your family and friends. I was in a networking group where a lady had been trying to launch a book, and she hadn't been successful in writing a book. So she stood up in front of 80 people at this networking event and said, when you come to the event in October, I will launch my book at that event. So she shared her plans with everybody in that room for accountability. Okay, so share your plans with your team. Share your plans with your customers. Okay, now I'm not saying you should share all the detail, because there's some detail that might be confidential, particularly if you're going to share it with the world. But tell people, you know, if you've got PR that's going out, if you've got newsletters that are going out, if you've got some good things in your plans, share them. Because when you share them, when you take them from that creation and put them down into some kind of format, the accountability level for getting things done moves up. So share your plan. That's one of the best things I can do to get you to work your plan and achieve your plan. And of course, break it down into those 90-day sections. Okay, make sure you've got actions. Having goals, having targets are great, but what's the goal? What's the activity? Who's going to do it? That's the 90-day process. If you can do it monthly, great. If you can review it, do it 90 days and then review it monthly, great. But at least every 90 days, set the goals, set the activity that you're going to do, and set who's going to do it. Okay. And of course, we went through an example last time. If you need more help with that, go back and watch the previous recording, or reach out to me. And I'm sure I or anybody at the Productivity Program will help with that. And I've seen a couple of emails come out asking for help with plans, etc. So we will get around to replying to those in the next day or so. So the question is, will you make the most of 2021? Today is about stepping up. Today is about using those 3 keys, making sure your destination is clear, making sure you have the abilities and the skills and become more to achieve the plans. If you think you're going to achieve more by staying the same, it won't work. Okay. And it's about working the plan, making better decisions, using the plan, reviewing the plan, making sure it's a working document. So will you make the most of 2021? Simple slide to ask. As always, I want you to think about 3 things. What could you do? Just write down now 3 things, and I'll give you just a couple of minutes to write down 3 things that you are going to do within the next couple of weeks. Now, the next webinar in 2 weeks' time is on legacy and how we can create a legacy in our business and lasting value, etc. What can you do in the next couple of weeks? What 3 things? And what I'd like you to do, if you're open to sharing them, put them in the chat box, plus any questions that you might have as well. What 3 things can you do? Don't have to be big things, There can be small things. But as always, I want you to make sure you take something away from all of my webinars and do something with what you've learned, what you've realized. It doesn't have to be a big blinding flash of the obvious. It could just be a small shift that you can do something about. So what 3 things? And then write them down, and if you're able to and want to, put them in the chat box. And while you do that, I'm just going to mark off the rest of the attendance list that we've got here. What 3 things could you do? And again, anything you want to put into the box, type it in there. So set annual targets that include team members in discussion. Joe, yeah, great. Thomas, yeah, make the plan. Good idea. Jackie, talk to the productivity program about grants. Good idea. I like that. Prepare job description for the employee. Define where the business needs to be each quarter. Great. And if you do want to reach out to the productivity program, I don't know if you've got the details from the emails you send you, but there's some contact details on there as well. Hazel, seek feedback on trial of new service. Yeah. Any kind of 360-degree review and feedback is important. And that's why I say share the plans. When you share the plans, the reason people don't share their plans very often is because they are frightened of feedback. They're worried about feedback. They're worried that people are going to say, really? Don't you think you're being a bit too ambitious with that, or that'll never work? But that's their negative language. Don't let it be yours. Set annual budget, start the recruitment process, business development manager who needs to be a disruptor. Great. Yeah. And again, business development people, anybody who you've got that's going out there, that's selling a business, if it's you that's selling the business, they need to know what the plans for the business are. Not necessarily detail, but they need to know where the business is going. They need to know the destination. Look at 8 life cycle and attach to a plan. Yep. Yeah, that wheel of life. Improve life, definitely. And remember, that's why we're doing it. I want you all to remember the reason. Strategic plans are great, and sometimes we have to do them for funding. Sometimes we have to do them for our bank. Sometimes we do them because people tell us, our advisors tell them we've got to do them. But the biggest reason for doing the plan is so that the business will give you what you want to achieve in your life on those 8 focus areas, the wheel of life. And as soon as you realize that, you will become more driven. And if you can share the Dream Manager book and the philosophies of that, of encouraging other people to achieve their wheel of life by being part of that plan, then that's where the magic really starts to happen as well. So we've just about hit the end of the hour. Thank you very much for taking part. I hope you've taken plenty of notes. If you've got any questions, I've got 5 minutes before I have to jump off and wrap it up. So if you would like to ask any questions, I'm happy to take any questions now. And thank you for sharing those things. I think that's great that you've got things on there that you're actually going to do something with. So any questions? So I get the tumbleweed roll across the screen in front of me. I ought to have some kind of video GIF that does that on the screen.
Hi, Simon. Just want to say thank you for today. I can miss last week, but I'd like to re-watch that. But yes, Millwall points, obviously, great. Really interesting. It's certainly going to make 2021 better for me.
Yeah.
So look forward to seeing fun.
Yeah. And thanks for that. And well done. Congratulations on doing the cycling and the exercising and all. I mean, that's a huge effort, and a round of applause for everybody for that, I think. But it.
With so resilience and so change. You said earlier about reading, about doing things myself.
Yeah.
I looked about. I did a lot of that thing. It's depressing. So I thought I need to change that. I need to kind of inspire them. So I didn't really think about their road and
and that's the thing, isn't it? We've got to be inspiring. We've got to be leaders, and I loved the webinar that Mark did, and I was quite privileged to have quite a few conversations with Mark. The webinar that he did last week. It's a shame that the recording isn't available. But yeah, we've got to work on being leaders and being inspirations ourselves. So yeah, thanks for that. Thanks. Had to jump off. Hazel filled the 90-day planning last time when preparing it for today. It was good to tick off actions and see how far we've come. Great. And it's a case of reviewing that now. Thank you for taking part. Thank you very much for all the comments you've put in there. Thank you for, I've seen all the heads down, writing things down. Thank you for getting the work done. It makes me feel that it's a good use of my time as well. And I will see you all hopefully on the next webinar in a couple of weeks' time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.